Here are a few reasons why Somalia is a failed state. We know we all know that as a fact, but some people try to paint a rosy picture of this country by showing us cool pictures of beaches, and actually the beaches that have not been bombed. You don't realize there are beaches that have been bombed, or they show you a big aerial, what do we call it, aerial photograph of a city like Mogadishu, and again a corner of Mogadishu that has not been bombed. And remember, this is not foreigners bombing these areas; they are themselves within the same country, basically people walking around killing each other. So they will show you those beautiful pictures and say, wow, look at how Somalia is beautiful, how Somalia is working, but this is very deceptive. And I'm going to cover 7 reasons why Somalia is an absolutely failed state, and a state that will not see prosperity anytime soon. So, point number one, territorial division, and within this point, political instability. You see, after the 1991 civil war, Somalia has been divided into a lot of fragments. With the government to some point controlled less than a tenth of the territory, but right now they have improved. They are controlling that area around Mogadishu, a small area, and then they control about 55% of the country via proxy, via royalty. They do not have direct control of those lands. They use clan based government systems to assert their political authority over those areas, and that political authority is limited because it's not an absolute control over those areas. Those areas, if they were to revolt against the government, they would. So the territory by itself, it's not unanimous, and then it's not unanimously controlled. And then you have to the north the Somali land rebels, mainly from the Isaac clan, split from the country and declare themselves a different country. You have Puntland is also very powerful, and it does not take direct orders from the state government. At times they what do you they come into a uniform consensus of what to do in terms of their politics, but in just some few years or months they split again. So Puntland, you cannot basically call it part of Somalia because it's almost like an autonomous state. It's just that they haven't declared their statehood yet. And then we have down to the south, Jubaland bordering Kenya, that is mainly controlled by Jubaland forces, and they have also cut ties with the government in Mogadishu, not once, not twice. And then within those clusters of control of South, South Somalia, we have massive pockets being controlled by the militia Al Shabaab, who have been active for decades right now. Al Shabaab controls entire towns, entire areas, and they administer those areas. So the idea of the existence of a homogeneous Somali state is just a pipe dream. It's a fragmentation of who controls what, with the government controlling a very small part there around Mogadishu, and the rest of the part you can call their control. It's basically influence, but not total control. So the idea of a homogeneous Somali state is just flawed, and those areas are just divided by different armed groups. So there's that, and then we have point number two. It is still affecting point number one, insurgents. You see, you cannot you cannot call yourself a country whereby like a third of your population and a third of your land is controlled by a militia, including major rivers, which are the very few sources of food you have for your country, and pockets of them are controlled by an insurgent group. You cannot call yourself a state. A group that has been declared a terrorist organization for their actions, and not because of simply hate, but their actions make them indeed a terrorist organization. They have conducted terror attacks in Kenya, even in Uganda. So you cannot call Al-Shabaab a governmental organization unless it reforms and bring forward its leadership. So the idea that Somalia is a country, yet a huge percentage of it is administered by a radical terrorist organization, well known and well documented and well acknowledged, is a pipe dream. It's just wishful thinking. So to point number three, arms proliferation. That country, after the civil war, guns were sold rampantly because there was different clans fighting here and there. Then some of the people are buying to form their groups and go to offensive. Some are buying guns to defend themselves. And then we have the fact that since 1991, that place has never had a unified government. So this problem of arms proliferation, if in fact it has grown, it has not been controlled at all. It's only in major cities like Kismayo, Mogadishu, Bedembwele, whereby people cannot just walk around with guns. But around the whole country, people just walk around with them. So the idea that you can tell people with the same capacity of violence as the government to behave and pay taxes is just flawed. That's why that country will never unite unless they take the guns from the citizens and from the insurgents and from the clan militias and centralize those guns only to the government and ensure those people in the government are well paid. Until they do that, that place will remain a failed state because people will always take matters in their own hands because the government has been inefficient before and it looks to be again inefficient to the future. So arms proliferation and poverty don't mix. You see, a case like the United States, people are not just killing each other because number one, it's not a poor country. It has not undergone a lot of political trauma. So the idea that a country with arms proliferation and poverty and trauma in the same sentence and say that is a state, that is just a pipe dream. So, and then number four, and this is actually one of the most hilarious things about Somalia. You would think because the country has only one tribe, they would get along, but no, they don't. They hate each other, especially in the clan lines. We had that guy, that former dictator of Somalia, Said Barre, commissioned a genocide against the Isaac clan, who are, I think, somewhere in the north, because those people seriously despise each other along clan lines. In fact, the politics of those countries and zones of controls are based on clan lines. Imagine you hate each other that much. You have the same religion, you have the same geolocation, you have the same tribe, but you still cannot get along. And then someone has the audacity to come here and tell us that Somalia is a country. No, it is a fragmentation of zones of control by different people who are trying to kill each other, and they will kill each other for a very, very long time. So, clan politics. Number five, economics. Uh, when you have a government that cannot enforce or collect tax and carry out infrastructure development, do not expect to have a country there. The economy of Somalia is no longer in existence. It's one of the poorest countries in whatever in East Africa, and it is very resource rich, but it doesn't provide, it doesn't produce anything at all. That's how bad it is. Basically, the war has ravaged the country, and also the internal division, and then those zones of control, in that the country can basically not produce almost anything. That's why then it has only two rivers and the rest of it is dry. That's why you see some of them turning to piracy, and piracy has been controlled for a while. They have fished in the sea, they have overfished their coastal waters. So that country economically, it's not even a country. That place economically, it's basically dead. It cannot revive unless there was some form of miracle, some sort of angel investor to lift that country out of poverty. That's the only solution. And then people will come and say, oh, Turkey has oil explorations there, blah 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 blah. Yeah, you're correct. Turkey is involved in Somalia, but do not think this development will come it will come in time soon. And also do not expect Somalia to get a good share of this. Turkey will smell blood, and it will give Somalia a very small portion of that oil that they are extracting. The bulk of the money, 80-90%, will be going to Turkey. And then this money they get, the politicians loot it, and the country remained in a failed position over and over again. Then number six, humanitarian crisis. When you have a large percentage of your population facing poverty and basically not doing any work, what do you expect again? You expect a very powerful, thriving country? No, you expect to have a failed state, and that is what Somalia is again. And then we have number seven. This one is attacks across the board. This is a very big problem for all African countries and even a lot of even other countries. There are very few countries that have solved this problem, but this problem, this number seven problem, it is just making the case worse for Somalia. You see, and this problem is corruption. You see, the United States has corruption, but it's rich enough that it cannot be that bad even when the corruption is there. But what happens when you have a very fragile state, a very poor fragile state, and then you add corruption into the mix? People will never progress. You see, I always see their officials flying over with private jets, with helicopters, and yet they only control a very small zone of the country. So even those people under the control of the government, they can never get enough social infrastructure to boost their lives. Then we have the continuous, uh, and this is just a general comment, and or you can categorize it as number eight. Then you have the constant insecurity. You hear this month Al Shabaab bombed, I don't know where in the city, they bombed there, they made an offensive there. Nobody will come and invest in that country. And even the people within that country, they look for a way to flee. And if they don't, they'll find a way to group, they get arms, and then they form like a form of territorial division for each other to defend themselves and also to sustain themselves. So the idea that Somalia is a state or even a homogeneous surviving civilization is just a pipe dream by people who accommodate those extreme left wing people who accommodate the idea, and also the nationalists of Somalia who do not admit their state already failed and their existence is in vain. So I hope within that video I've explained a few points on why Somalia is a failed state, and see you in the next video.